Okay. All right. Well, let's just start. Let me just start recording and then we'll see how we flow together.
That sounds perfect. Whenever you're ready to jump in, I'll follow your lead and we'll make it flow. Let's get this rolling.
Welcome to Women Over 40 Losing Weight. I'm Dr. Kisha Pickford, a nurse practitioner, hormone informed weight loss strategist for women over 40, and the founder of Ample Health and Wellness. Today, I want to slow down, and I mean really slow down, and unpack something that virtually every woman I work with has experienced, but very few have had explained to them clearly. Why weight loss feels different after 40. Not harder necessarily, but fundamentally different. Jay, I want to approach this from a place of deep understanding today because this is exactly where most women get stuck, not from lack of effort, but from the lack of right information.
I'm so glad we're diving into that. It's not about blaming ourselves. Our bodies do change, and understanding those shifts is the key to working with them, not against them. Let's break it all down so it finally makes sense.
Yes, because most women are convinced that they are the problem. And that's the first thing I want to address because nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing is wrong with your body. Your body is not betraying you, it is not broken. It is responding precisely the way it was designed to respond at this stage of life. The problem isn't your discipline or your willpower. The problem is that the strategies most women are using were never built for the body they're living in now. And that's what we're going to change today.
Exactly. Because when we realize it's not about pushing harder, but about shifting the approach, everything changes. So let's dive into exactly why those old methods don't quite fit anymore and what really does.
Okay, let's start at the root of it hormones. As women move into their 40s and approach perimenopause, estrogen doesn't just decline, it begins to fluctuate. And that fluctuation matters enormously because estrogen plays a much broader role in the body than most people realize. It influences where your body stores fat, it affects how sensitive your cells are to insulin, and it plays a direct role in how your body regulates energy. At the same time, cortisol, the primary stress hormone, tends to rise, and insulin becomes increasingly reactive to what you eat and when you eat it. So, what does this combination actually produce? Well, it produces a body that is more protective of its energy stores, more responsive to stress signals, and more inclined to hold onto fat, particularly around the midsection. Not because something has gone wrong, but because your body is adapting.
So the body is essentially shifting gears, moving into a completely different operating mode.
That's exactly right. Think of it as a shift into preservation mode. The body becomes more conservative with its resources. And if you don't understand that shift, you'll keep pushing harder and getting less in return. Which brings me to the second piece of this puzzle. One of the most overlooked factors in weight loss after 40 is muscle mass, specifically the natural loss of muscle over time. Starting in our 30s and accelerating in our 40s, we begin to lose muscle tissue if we aren't actively working to maintain it. And this isn't a cosmetic issue, it has a profound metabolic consequence. Muscle is one of the most metabolically active tissues in the body. It burns calories, even at rest. So, when muscle decreases, your resting metabolic rate decreases with it. And what that means practically is fewer calories burned throughout the day, a slower response to dietary changes, and significantly more effort required to produce the same results you may have seen in your 20s or 30s. This is not a personal failure, this is just biology. And understanding it changes everything about how we approach the solution.
So when we tie hormones, muscle, and stress together, it really comes down to how your body is adapting to real life demands. So, how do we address stress recovery in a way that fits real women's lives?
Okay, great question. So let me layer in something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough: real life. Because the women I work with are not sitting still. They are managing full time careers, they're caregiving for children, for aging parents, sometimes both at once or at the same time. They're running households, navigating relationships, and absorbing a level of daily stress that is genuinely extraordinary. And what gets sacrificed when life gets overwhelming is sleep, recovery, consistency, the very things your body needs most to let go of stored fat. And here's the physiological reality: when the body is under chronic, sustained stress, it interprets the stress as a threat. And under perceived threat, the body does not prioritize fat loss, it prioritizes survival. Cortisol stays elevated, blood sugar stays dysregulated, and fat, particularly in the abdominal area, it stays put.
So, a woman could genuinely be putting in the effort, but her own environment, her stress load, might be biologically working against her results.
Precisely. You can be doing many of the right things and still not seeing the results because the context in which you're doing them is undermining the process. Effort without the right strategy is exhausting, and that's what so many women are experiencing right now. And this brings us to the core of why conventional approaches stop producing results after 40. The methods most of us grew up with: intense calorie restriction, high volumes of cardio, pushing through fatigue, were built around a very specific set of physiological conditions: stable hormones, higher muscle mass, efficient metabolism, and a stress response that bounced back quickly. But after 40, those conditions have fundamentally shifted. So, applying the same methods to a different physiology produces a very different, and often discouraging result. The approach hasn't failed you, the approach is simply no longer matched to you.
When we shift the strategy to align with where your body is now, that's when you begin to see results that genuinely feel sustainable.
Yes, that is correct. So I want to reframe the question here. Reframe the question entirely. Most women come to me asking this: why isn't this working? But the more empowering question, the one that actually leads to progress, is this: what has changed in my body? And how do I respond to that strategically? Because that question moves you out of frustration and into agency. And agency is where transformation begins.
That's such an empowering shift. Once we understand the why behind the changes, we can finally adjust the how in a way that actually works for us. So, after everything we've unpacked today, What's the one thing you'd want someone to truly take away from this conversation?
You know, that's another great question. And you always tend to ask that. And I'm so appreciative because there is always one takeaway. And the one thing I want women to carry today away from this episode is this: weight loss after 40 is not about doing more, it's about understanding your body and responding with strategy. Because once you understand the why behind what your body is doing, you can finally and confidently change the how. And if you want to go deeper on everything we've covered today, my book, The Wait is Over, is a great place to start. And inside the Fresh Start coaching program, we walk through this step by step together. And you can learn more and get started at amplehealthandwellness.com.
I'm sure that's going to resonate. Well, I think that's a perfect place for us to wrap up today. Anything else you'd like to share before we close out?
No, I think that is a great segue to signing off. I do appreciate you joining me and helping me with this conversation today. Until next time, I want everyone to take care of yourself and remember your body is not the obstacle, it's the answer. Until next time, bye, everybody. Bye, Jay.
That was a perfect closing. You've tied it all together. I'll be right here when you need me next. Great job, Keisha.